This is the beginning. That's why I'm here. I know. I just told Bill I had to park way over here.
Good evening, it's 6:32. February the 4th, calling the standard Universal City Council meeting to order. Call for quorum check.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick. Here. Councilmember Bulman. Here. Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Putt. Here. Councilmember Rubal.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Super. The invocation tonight is by Councilmember Rubal, and then I'll let this in the pledge.
Heavenly Father, guide this council to better serve all of our brothers and sisters, to protect our children, to address the needs of the elderly, the disabled, and those less fortunate. Padre Celestial, guía este consejo para servir mejor a todos. ¿Por qué? Porque servir mejor a todos, servir a mis días. Mis palabras son muy fuertes porque mis palabras están de mi corazón. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Start up with the citizens to be heard. Give an opportunity for the citizens to just 3 minutes to have statements that are interested in the panel. First up is Joe Redwine. Is that correct? You come up. State your name and your address.
I'm Joe Redwine. I own a house at 8411 Athenian in Universal City, down close to where the elementary school is. And when I'm just coming to talk about people, I know a few people. I've lived about 50 years down in that area, or we've had a house down in that area this time. I'm sure y'all all very aware about the growth in this, everywhere around us and everything else, and of course our growing pains on 35. And we have just seemed to be getting an influx of traffic coming in off of 35 on, forgive me, I've gotten older through my little map here. Coming in on Universal City Boulevard, you know, from Selma in. And at times, it just seems like the people are just upset because the traffic is so bad. I can't blame them. I suffer from the same thing. But they come up through there and they hit that four-way stop sign by the elementary school. This is not during school let out in the afternoon or in the morning. This is at all hours. You never know when it's going to happen. And we just had an influx. I mean, I literally watched and I can hear. Not well as enough anymore, but I can still hear. I can hear the cars. I can hear the tires, and I can hear them coming. And they will blow up Athenian with this. It just drives you crazy. You can hear them coming. And if they stop at that four-way stop sign at Forum and Athenian right there, it's good, but they usually put those brakes on pretty hard because it's 20 miles an hour in there. And they just blow up that street like no end. And it's, the neighbors are getting concerned about it, the few that I've talked to. I haven't talked to everybody, but I will if somebody asks me to. And when you hit that stop sign at Forum and Athenian, there's no sidewalks from that point all the way out to Pat Booker Road on Athenian. And people have parked increasingly more double stacked along that road. And, you know, in the evening, now that it's pleasant, you get people out there walking their animals, they're out there with their children and stuff, and the way these people are blowing around on the roads, and, I digress, excuse me. I don't know if there's an ordinance about 18-wheelers running up into the neighborhoods, but, you know, it's Olympia there. We've got an increased amount of 18-wheelers, and I call them bulk carriers. These are the ones that are carrying gravel, any type of bulk material up in there, coming right up the street right in there, and going right up and blowing in there. And when you get that 18-wheeler up in that area where there's no sidewalks and people are double parked on the street there, there's little to no room for anybody to make a mistake. And I'm just concerned sooner or later with something bad is gonna happen. You know, Lord, hope it in the child. But I thought it had happened at the start of the summer. I was out in the front of the house watering the grass, and a car came blowing up, and I saw him, but I had the water hose, so I didn't run out and yell at him or anything. But I just stopped dead when I heard the sound. The car hit something. And if you've ever heard a car hit a living creature, there's nothing like it. And I ran around the corner. The car, all I saw was the car hit the stop sign, and I mean just barely braked, went through the stop sign and took off. Then I had to clear the little fold up off the street. Yeah, and it's just, I'll cut it short here now, because I know I'm over 3 minutes. I just wish, I don't know what the solution is. There are some speed bumps in Olympia where they slow traffic down, but they're all on side streets way out. There's nothing on Athenian or Universal City, you know, where it goes down through there. And you can literally, if you sit out there at night, and we're older, we like to sit out there, and now the mosquitoes aren't eating us alive, you can hear it. I don't know who it is, what it is, I don't know what their reasoning is, but we just got more aggressive drivers. Okay, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
You've got a duly noted. We're not to address that, but we are looking at traffic. Next up is Ms. Elizabeth Parker. Welcome back, ma'am.
Elizabeth Parker, 111 Malaga Circle, Universal City. This morning, the Coronado Village Elementary School marquee was changed to read, New School, Moving Day Fall 25-26, Selma Elementary School. In January, Judson administration put forth options to repurpose the elementary school space. One option is the alternative education program for middle and high school students who have committed incidents and are removed from the classroom. This program, now called J-Care, is currently located in Converse on School Street, right next to the Judson Police Department, where immediate support is available. This program is not appropriate in Coronado Village, with 30-plus residences on all sides. At the January Judson Board meeting, the Texas Academic Performance Report for the 2023-2024 school year in the violent and criminal incidents section showed roughly 7,000 incidents, and the numbers of incidents in categories such as felonies, marijuana-related, assaults on district and non-district personnel, and public lewdness. Council leadership is on target with UC Vision 35. The previous Gateway magazine says that this isn't about planning and zoning. It's about our goals as a community. The comprehensive plan reflects the desires and needs of our residents. Our need is Coronado Village concern with personal safety, property values, and attracting new families. What will real estate agents tell prospective clients? No neighborhood elementary school, but we have an alternative program for troubled youth. Could not students in the swim classes on the school property be subjected to offenses listed in that performance report? My request is for the February 18th council agenda to include discussion of the best, most suitable option for the city and for Coronado Village subdivision for repurposing the elementary school as repurposing relates to UC Vision 35. School board member Laura Stanford said she's talked with others having the same concerns about elementary school repurposing. She said she was promised that the board can meet with the community, that the board would place repurposing under careful consideration, and no decisions have been made. The next Judson board meeting is February 20th at 6 p.m. The second Judson administration growth and repurposing meeting is February 24th at 6:30 p.m. in the Coronado Village Elementary cafeteria. February 24th is not a school board meeting. Let's discuss as a city before February 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I may suggest that folks that are interested in this one might want to attend the Judson School Board and make your opinion known there. Unfortunately, the city does not have jurisdiction over the actual property itself, but the jurisdiction, your input to the school board would be greatly appreciated.
As is yours.
Noted. We're restricted in what we can do, sir, and we can't have discussions with the audience, I'm sorry. Mr. Robert Whiting?
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity. I live at 323 Madrid Drive in Coronado Village. I'm here to support Ms. Parker's statements. I've owned a home there. I've owned it now for 10 years. My parents lived there, 30 years prior to that. Neighborhood is a great neighborhood, and I'm highly concerned, just as she stated, about the real estate values and about the increase. I can't say it's going to happen, but I know it's happened across this country. A potential for an increase in crime in our neighborhood. So I've got some real concerns there. One day I hope to sell the house, but I want to make sure I get value out of my home. Follow up on that is I don't know, are we allowed to petition our neighbors before we go to the school board and take a position from our neighborhood so that they can identify with us as to the impact, the significance of the concern?
I don't know of any reason why you could not do that.
Okay, so we don't need a permit, but to do that?
No.
No, we do not. Sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. James Talley?
James Talley, 130 Valencia, Universal City. I'm pretty much, I guess Elizabeth said it pretty plainly, and Robert did too. I'm here for the same purpose. And if any of you have not been to the school where it's at now, the Converse, when I went to tour that neighborhood. When I was here 10 years ago, it was pretty much like ours, and it looked good. Now it's torn down. There are houses that are vacant. It looks terrible. I'm just saying our neighborhood doesn't deserve that. I don't think it is a place for alternative schools. So I just want pretty much agreement. Everything that Elizabeth said and Robert is pretty much what I had to say. So I'll yield that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. There's a definite consensus going. Next up is Anthony Snyder, Sr.
I have a presentation on the flash drive, but the powers that be have made it so I can't play it for the rest of the audience to see.
Police know everywhere you drive. They can tell when you're driving to work, picking up your kids from school, or going to a doctor's appointment. And many residents be about it.
My name is Lee Schmidt, and I live in Norfolk, Virginia. I was stationed originally in Norfolk on board the USS Bainbridge, and I retired here just recently. So I was stationed on Little Creek. I was driving to work, and I started driving by these little cameras on poles. And while I was sitting at a stoplight waiting to get to work one day, I took a picture of one. And I reached out to my local council people with the photo one and just kind of asked, what were they? Well, I got a response back saying that they were the flock cameras, and I started to do a bit of research on them, and I really realized how intrusive they were.
In 2023, Norfolk Police partnered with a tech company called Flock Safety to install more than 170 automatic license plate reader cameras throughout the city. These cameras are different from a red light camera or speed camera, which are triggered by a specific violation. They watch every car that drives by.
You can actually create a traceable path of the car moving through the city as long as it's being picked up by the flock cameras.
Correct. And it would be difficult to drive anywhere of any distance without running into a camera somewhere.
I don't like being tracked every day. I don't like when I drive by the intersection here at Ward's Corner, then being able to tell which way I'm going. There's 4 cameras there. When I researched the cameras, I did learn about them using artificial intelligence. That when you drive by them, it's not just a snapshot of your license plate number. It reads the demographics of your vehicle. It's a brown car, it's got fender damage, and then it can build a profile of where you've been, and that tracking ability is quite nerve-wracking.
Once it uploads driver's information to the cloud, Flock uses AI to create a fingerprint police can use to track the same vehicle as it moves through the city. Flock says its cameras are in more than 5,000 communities across 47 states. Norfolk's police chief commented that the use of Flock cameras in neighboring cities creates a, quote, curtain of technology. Flock's cameras store the data they collect, and police can access it without a warrant.
There's no controls on how it can be used. Someone can go out and pull that data whenever they want if they just don't like you. There's no limits or requirements on how often it's audited to see when the police officers have pulled up the information.
In Kansas, police were caught using Flock cameras to stalk their exes. In California, police departments may have violated state law by sharing their Flock data outside the state. And similar databases have been hacked, revealing private data that was offered up for sale on the dark web.
And I'm worried about someone getting...
And next up is Anthony Jr., I'm assuming to continue.
I yield my time to him.
That data and access to the cameras and be able to know if I'm home or if I'm out of the state. Is it a good time to break into my home? Is it a good time to track my wife? The amount of abuse that can be done by just tracking my vehicle is pretty great.
This type of prolonged warrantless surveillance is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has ruled that prolonged use of cell phone location data to follow someone is a search that requires a warrant. And the federal court that covers Norfolk ruled that Baltimore's use of surveillance planes to monitor the city was an illegal warrantless search. Tracking people everywhere they go is a search, and giving the police arbitrary power to track everyone in Norfolk is unreasonable. That's why Lee Schmidt has teamed up with IJ to file a federal lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of this surveillance program.
With this lawsuit, I hope to end the illegal and unconstitutional surveillance. I hope that my kids don't have to be illegally surveilled, and I hope that other people don't fall to the abuses of the surveillance.
My background's in telecommunications. I've worked for many different government agencies, including the United States Air Force and private companies. I've installed video camera systems in other parts of the country. I've seen them abused, and I make sure the abusers have gone to prison. And this system is riddled full of holes, and it can be easily accessed. It can be easily sold data, and it shouldn't be out there blanketing our cities. It's bad enough I have to do that around my house to keep uniformed police officers from death threatening and stalking my house because I've terminated an employee of theirs. It's in my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder, and Mr. Snyder Jr. That's all for the citizens to be heard. Excuse me 1 second here. Staff report, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe Mayor Bill's going to pop up my presentation for me. Thank you. So one of the questions we've been getting a lot from staff, from residents and other businesses from City Council is why do we have so many CBD or we sell weed stores, right? We've all seen them on various streets. And so what I thought I would do is kind of just give you a little primer on CBD to THC. How did we get here and what do we do? It's not something that's new. Do I have control of the slides now? Yes. There we go. It actually started at the congressional level in 2018. Congress passed what was called in the Farm Bill. They passed a definition of cannabis, and they said it was anything that was 0.30% and above, and that is the hallucinogenic. If there's anything that is below that, then it is not hemp, and it is not subject as a federal controlled substance. And so what we're seeing a lot now is the stores that are selling the 0.30 and below. So that's what you're seeing. And then you're kind of wondering, well, you know, we don't allow that in Texas. How did we get there? Well, it was an unfortunate circumstance. In 2015, the state passed the Compassionate Use Care Act. And that basically at that time said if you have severe epilepsy, THC is shown to reduce your episodes. And so there are state licensed marijuana doctors that prescribe state licensed marijuana products through a state licensed purveyor. It's either a doctor's office or some kind of medical facility. And so that went into effect for epilepsy only. In 2019, when the legislature was in session, in the Farm Bill, for the Ag Bill for Texas, they adopted the federal definitions of CBD and THC. So if you remember, a few years ago, we saw a couple of CBD stores in there. They sell gummy bears and other things of that nature, stuff for your pets to help them calm. And so CBD is kind of a calming effect. It's not really a psychotic or high, we'll call it that. That's the term we all use. And so that led to a few CBD stores popping up in Universal City. I think at one time we had 3. Well, then after we adopted that, in 2019, the state also adopted the extension of the Compassionate Use Care Act. So remember, they originally passed it for epilepsy. Then what they did is they said, okay, so THC, marijuana, has a useful effect for a lot of diseases, PTSD being a big one, which of course in the area that we're in, that's a big deal, as well as a lot of other big health issues that it could be used for. Again, all of that had to have been done through a state licensed marijuana dispensary, which we do have one here in Universal City. But you had to get your prescription from a doctor who was licensed through the state to write the prescription, and the dispensary that is licensed through the state to give it to you. So there was a lot of control mechanisms in place. If you had a disease that did not fall within that long list, there was no way for you to get it. Well, the hemp industry obviously proved to be a little bit smarter than the federal government and the state legislature. So there was a chemist and a botanist, and they started working with the marijuana or the hemp products. And they figured out that they could do an extraction from it, and they came up with a compound that is called THCA. And the THCA, when they extract it, it is 0.3%. So by doing that, they were able to skirt the federal laws and the state definitions of a controlled substance, and they figured it could be sold anywhere, which is why you're seeing this plethora of we sell weeds and bongs and everything else. So they are not officially breaking any law, and there's no enforcement mechanism. So when they passed all of these bills, they gave nobody the ability to enforce it or to go in and check the products in there or testing labs to check the product. So we've kind of run amok. So that's how we got there in Texas. So people kind of have been wondering, you know, what is the societal impact? So I just pulled out a couple of headlines from our local area. And this one actually I pulled out because it had a lot to do with high schools. And this is a San Antonio story, and it talked about how 65% of the vape products that they are pulling out from kids in the high school, all the high schools have a no vape policy, right? No smoking, no vaping. But a lot of kids are sneaking them in because vaping is easy to do, undetectable. 65% of the vapes that they pull out and the school has tested are shown to have THC in it. And so it is a big deal. Now, in the shops themselves, they say that you have to be 21 or over to buy it. But, you know, I mean, come on, we've all been kids, right? Everybody was a kid. We all bought something we weren't supposed to have when we were underage at one time or another, and you imbibed in it. But this has become a very easy thing for young kids to get a hold of all ages. So that. And then there's the issue we have with the Texas legislature. So business owners of the CBD and the THCA stores are saying that they're an $8.5 billion business now, and just from 2019 moving forward to today, and that it is a vibrant part of the Texas economy, and we can't go back. Then we have Texas legislators that saying, oh no, we got to clean this up. And so now we've got this push-pull between the Texas legislature and this industry and the business owners of the farms and the crops and the products and all the products that are being sold to individuals. So you've got that battle going on at the legislative session, and that's happening this legislative session. So that's one portion of it. The other thing at some of the headlines I pulled out so you can kind of see how it's playing out at the legislature. So this is what I pulled out from December 7th. This is Dan Patrick, he's our lieutenant governor. And he has actually proposed that they're going to put triggers on cannabis and cannabis products. But then you get down to Sid Miller, and he's our agricultural commissioner, and he says, nope, we've gone too far, there's no way we can go back. So it's legislator against business owners, and it's legislators against legislators. So we'll see how that battle works out. Then there is Universal City, right? Because that's what we care about. So I know if you've traveled and you've been to Oregon or Colorado or some of the places where they've legalized it, I mean, you can see a pot store like every third or fourth store if you're in a downtown area or at Main Street. There is a proliferation of them. And, you know, it's happening all across Texas. But what we really care about right tonight is Universal City. So we want to talk about Universal City and how many stores do we actually have and where are they? So this is a very difficult map to read, Michael. Michael made this map. Maybe we could just say this generally, and then we'll put the map up afterwards so everybody can go up and look at it. So in Little Universal City, we have 15 stores. And probably more coming. Oops. And probably more coming. And Maribel, you're trying to make the map a little bigger? Thank you. So if you look on the map and you see all the numbers on there, you can see that the preponderance of them on the east end of Pat Booker Road near FM 78. And what area is this for the city?
Aviation District.
Yes, the aviation district, and what are we trying to do with it?
Yeah.
Yes, and so the question is we have all of these, will they run themselves out of business? Will there be so many of them that they don't have any customers that they're going to take themselves out of the market?
No.
We don't know. I mean, time will tell on that. You remember, some of you may remember, you know, when we had like 18 tattoo parlors in Universal City and, you know, maybe 34 car lots. And we were like that for a very long time. We had to put some mechanisms in place to change that. So the question is what mechanisms can we put in place at this point? And I'm going to have to bust your bubble and tell you that you have none. Here's why. Also it was in the, I think, 2023 legislature, the zoning laws were changed for cities that said if we went through and did a zone change and it had an impact on somebody's ability to continue their business, that we had to pay them for their economic loss. So we have 15 of them. If we tried to zone them out or zone them down, we have to bear the financial burden of doing that. Now, you would think, okay, well, there's laws in place for where you can sell alcohol, right? But there are not these same laws for where you can sell CBD or THC products. So there's distancing that we would like to see. So then the question is well, why I get this one a lot too, why aren't the police doing something about it? There's no oversight by anybody. There's no policing policy. We don't have the authority. We don't have the know-how. We don't have the testing labs. I was talking to Chief Stevens when we were talking about the vapes and just pulling people over and having products in there. Once you bust that open and it starts to dry out, you've lost your evidence. You can test it and maybe it has it, but now your evidence is dried up and you can't reuse it because it's in liquid form in the vapes. And then the other issue that we have is, let's say we pull somebody over and they have, 800 products or something in there. You have to send that out to a testing lab. I've seen the invoices. It costs about $300 per product to have it tested. And we're talking a product that maybe costs $20, right? Not only that, because there are a lot of political decisions made by district attorneys in the San Antonio area that oversees Universal City, a lot of things just get thrown out because it's not worth their time to take it through the court system. But if you had something, then send it to the testing site. They are about 1 year behind on their schedule. So it would be highly unlikely that anytime soon you could prove that somebody was carrying THC on them. So that's problematic as well. Then there's the legislative action. So this is probably one of the few places where we can actually start working with our state legislatures. Whether you're for it or against it, you still need to speak out, whether it's a resident or an elected official. You need to find your agricultural commissioner, your lieutenant governor, and your local officials, and let them know what you want done with this, because there's a lot of pressure on them from all angles. But I am fearful that the general public is not being heard from. And so from the city's perspective, I intend to write a white paper on it and send it up, but from a city's perspective, we would like to have some zoning authority to delegate where they can be located and how close they can be to a school and how close they can be to a church and how close they can be to each other. Because I'm afraid if we don't, we're going to have Pat Booker Road, Coronado, and Kitty Hawk just lined up with CBD and THC stores. That is my general presentation. Any questions? Again, I'm not an authority on, drug testing or cannabis, CBD. Mr. Goolsby?
Thank you. So you said that there's no zoning and you're going to write something and send it up. When you say that, are you talking about who are you sending that to?
So when issues come up at the Texas legislature, we write white papers, and there's usually a committee that's looking at particular bills. We send that to them, letting them know how we feel, what we want from them, what kind of action we would like them to take. So we send that to those elected officials. So when they go into a committee, they can vote for or against something, depending on what our say is. So that's where we'll be sending it, is to those elected officials that are on certain committees and the ones that definitely represent our area.
Okay. Because I really, the fact that we can regulate liquor store locations, don't get me wrong, I love finding those loopholes. I enjoy them all day long. But I would love to be able to roll those in the same, see what I did there? Roll it.
We got it.
Into the same pod.
Too funny.
It's that stiff shirt.
It is. It's a little too tight.
If in fact it is such an economic boom to Texas, and I don't know who's booming from it, I guess private business and farmers. Oh, Mr. Vaughan? give the city some authority to regulate it on the local level on where they can be and how many, without having to bear the financial burden of doing our own rezoning and having to make financial amends to those that go out of business.
Because I would hate to put somebody out of business. I mean, you know, I would hate to zone it to where I can only have one CPA in Universal City. That's not cool. And I don't want to put anybody out of business, but I do appreciate the fact that if we could put those types of regulations, you can only have this many, this far apart type of thing. I would not be offended by that.
So if the state allows cities to regulate it via zoning, everybody that's in place when that law takes effect is grandfathered until such time that they cease business. And then our laws would take effect. No, you're within 500 feet of this one, so you can't accept a new one. That would happen, but there should not be any financial burden that the city has to pay for that. But it can only happen at this point, can only happen at the state legislature. You yourselves, as a city council and as a planning and zoning commission, cannot regulate them at this point.
My comment is just more of an education. There was a Texas Monthly article that was out a couple months ago that was really interesting and talked about this overall of Texas, and they had in fact taken 2 samples from 4 major cities and sent it to California. They were all supposedly under the 3%, and all 8 of the samples tested in excess of the 3%, and they were in fact closer to 6%. So the people that are doing the testing on the product are actually the growers of the product. So they're in fact certifying that they're 3%. So there is problems with the industry overall. Texas does have a group that goes out to inspect these stores and kind of do some testing, but there's 4 people, and the number of stores that will take them 5 years, as of the writing of that article, which I know we've had probably 5 more stores open up in UC alone, would have taken them 5 years to go and inspect all the stores once. So it is something to pay attention to, and it is something that, again, you should be letting your the legislatures know in Austin on how you feel about it, because it is impactful for our community. So that's all.
And it's not just our community, obviously, right. They're all, I know Natalie and I have talked about one small community that they maybe had 6 stores and 3 of them were, CBD, THC stores, and, their police officers were able to handle that because it was just, free. But a lot of undercover work goes into that, and again, you're still back with the whole issue of testing and how long will that get done before you can actually find out that they're over the limit and can close them down. It's time and money and manpower.
Can we put the information out on what committees we need to write to? I think a lot of people don't write because they don't know who to send it to. So can we get the word out of the main committees?
So the legislature is going through and doing committee selections now, and those will all be out soon, but we will find the particular bills that are out there regarding CBD and THC and compassionate care use, and we'll find the committees where those bills are going, and then we can give out the email addresses, mail addresses, and phone numbers for those members.
That'd be wonderful, thank you.
But you still have Representative Lujan, that you have to.
State Rep Donna Campbell and Senators Don Campbell and Senators Gutierrez.
Yes.
And Vargas.
So we still have those 3. We should be very easy for us to get their ear, as well as the ones from Guadalupe County, because let's remember, we're in Bexar County, but we're also in Guadalupe County.
And that's Donna's sections.
Yes, sir. So we need to touch base with them also.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, the data suggests that we're well beyond the power curve, that we're hampered by state and federal regulations. That being said, it would serve council better to have more reporting of what is going on. I'd like the chief to, if possible, I'd like the chief to identify what crime related things have gone on with the escalation of the stores in our area. What arrests, what traffic accidents, and so forth, what increases have been seen, or have there been any increases?
So I don't think we're tracking any of that. It's just still a DUI, whether it's drugs or alcohol, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Lieutenant Rios can speak to this much better than I can as he works more closely with patrol. But first off, I'll back up. I'm one of the 80 Texas police chiefs that are on the Texas Police Chiefs Association's executive board, and happy to do that for our citizenry here and for the profession. We're actively working this. We have a paid executive director over legislative items who are up in Austin. I just got back from Austin last week. I was up at the Capitol with our senators and state reps, and this was a topic that was very near and dear to all of our hearts. So it's got traction. Senator Donna Campbell is in Guadalupe side. Senator Gutierrez is on this side. You can write both their offices. To your question, sir, this is very difficult. There's really no crimes that come out of it except a local, and LT, please help me out here, except writing a local paraphernalia citation for many of these violations because we have a Soros-backed DA in Bexar County that doesn't take the cases. And this is simply facts of the situation we find ourselves in. They don't prosecute marijuana cases very often. In fact, they quit prosecuting unlawful carrying if it's a result of marijuana cases. So this has become a very large slippery slope, and it's impacting all of the major cities because most of those have the Soros-backed DAs that are not prosecuting marijuana cases. By not testing them at the Bexar County lab, these liquids, these waxes, these oils, these edibles, they force you to go to the DPS lab. You can't go to a private lab. DPS lab is backed up a year. The clock's running when you make an arrest, so you can't get your stuff turned in time for them to take it to court, thereby kicking it out. And this has been in the news often with Dylan Collier investigating the 1,400 cases that were dismissed because they exceeded their time frame at in the queue. And so this is quite the conundrum.
Thank you. I do want to stress that a number of months ago, Mayor Pro Tem actually brought this to our attention, and it's been a number of months ago, and we've been studying it. The Northeast Partnership, which is this 13 cities northeast of San Antonio, including Universal City, each of the mayors has been advocating as a block for this also to our elected officials at state and federal level. So this is not something that's just laying there. This is an ongoing, a lot of many moving parts, and we are all working together for this. So the best thing you can do is continue to write your elected officials, including us, our state and federal officials, for your dissatisfaction. Other than that,
Yeah, I want to just touch on something that Mr. Rubal had mentioned about tracking the bills, and we try to track the bills the best that we can. I don't think people understand how many bills get into the legislative session. There'll be like 9,800 bills that we have to track. So what we end up doing as a staff is we kind of have to pick and choose which ones that we think will have the most detriment to our community. This being one, the disabled veterans exemption being the other one, and then a few taxing and certainly some policing issues.
1,000, yes ma'am. There's 1,000 bills impacting law enforcement in one form or another.
At this point, remember, they're not done submitting bills, so it's daunting and it does take a lot of impact. One of the things, and I know several of you have been on the webinars with us for the TML, telling you about the grassroots and who the legislatures really want to hear from. Yeah, they really don't want to hear from me. They're willing to listen to this association, but who they really want to hear from is the elected officials, because you're the representation of the people. Are they? Sure, they're going to listen to everybody, but when you call and say, I'm Councilmember so-and-so, somebody's going to get on the phone to listen to you, even if it's an aide. When it's the rest of us, they're just going to blow us off.
How do the people back you up? Is there something we can sign or something? Because
I'm sorry, we're not allowed to use this. It's not an open forum. Sorry, my apologies on that.
If it were me as a regular resident, I would go onto the state website, put in my address, and find out who represents me, and send an email or make a phone call.
Thank you.
You might want to repeat that one more time.
As a resident, if I needed to know who represented me at the state, I would go onto the state website, put in my address, and it will tell you who represents you. It gives you their phone number, their office information in Austin, and their office information in this area. And from there, you can either call one of those offices or send them an email. I will give a caveat on the email, though. There are so many people sending them emails at this time. I mean, tons of people. You will get a bounce back response that says something to the effect, Thank you for your email. I'm busy carrying out the people's business. I will attend to it when I can. And let me tell you, they're not going to attend to it. Phone calls make a big difference because somebody in their office has to pick up the phone or listen to the message.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the equivalent of a foot stomper in a lecture hall.
Thank you.
Both sides.
Got it.
Now going to a staff report, development update presentation.
Christine. Oh, it's Michael. Oh, I'm sorry, development update, thank you. So as you know, I'm going to remind you one more time so I don't have to say it later. We do have the Planning and Zoning and City Council joint meeting for the comprehensive plan. And we've given this presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's just kind of a reminder of what we've had in the last few years, what's going on now, what we're looking toward the future. And I'll let Michael take it away from there.
We also have given this to the EDC. So let's talk development. We've had a lot going on over the past year. Just want to start out by saying from a larger perspective that, again, for the last 4 to 5 years, there's been significant development throughout the city, not just one location or one area, but spread throughout the city, which is a good thing. Over 92% of the city is developed. Of that, 19% consists of rights-of-way, your streets, sidewalks, curb and gutter. That means that less than 8% of the city is undeveloped. So we've broken this down into completed projects, current projects, and future projects. So completed projects, we've had 14 total projects built. From a commercial standpoint, HTO recently opened last year. Tint World opened as well. From a residential standpoint, we've had Vaughan Villa, which is the project over on West Bird Street, and that is broken down into 2 phases, so you'll see that on 2 slides, this completed project as well as the current project. So it's a total of 20 units, 10 buildings or 10 duplexes, and they've completed 5 of those, and they have received their certificates of occupancy. They have not had anybody move in yet. If you drive by there, you see that they do have their fencing up, but they also have the fence that blocks anyone from going into the site. So they'll start later this year on the 2nd phase. We also have Cibolo Crossing, which is a single-family subdivision. That total build-out is 163 homes, broken into 3 phases. They've already completed phase 1. They're currently working on phase 2, and we've already issued 41 certificates of occupancy. And then from an industrial standpoint, North Lake Business Park, we've had, as you've probably seen, those 2 large blue and white buildings, total 186 square feet. We just, a couple of weeks ago, had the grand opening for the first tenant, Motic, which is a microscope instrument company, and they relocated from Shirts to Universal City, so that was a nice grab for us. And based on our conversation with the owner of the property, they are in talks with one more tenant to occupy the rest of that building, and they're still looking for tenants for the 2nd building. But that total project consists of 5 buildings in all, about 382,000 square feet combined. So we'll move on to current projects. 11 total projects are currently under construction. As we've talked about before, Chick-fil-A is, you can probably see the construction for the entrance at Walmart, which is currently under construction. We're adding a right-hand turn lane when you exit out onto Kitty Hawk. And that will provide access to the backside of Chick-fil-A. There's also going to be an entrance coming off of where you used to enter one of the entrances for St. Matthew's Church, right next door. And we will probably issue, or at least be ready to issue their permit sometime later this month. On the other side of town, up north by Centerbrook and Athenian, the address is 333 Athenian. That's the southwest corner. It's across the street from that triangular lot that we talked about a couple of years ago for single family. So that corner lot that is next to the barber shop, which I believe that building just sold, as well as the Foot Doctor, There's an Asian restaurant that would like to have a drive-through as well as a sit-down. So we've been working with them. We've reviewed a couple of iterations with their plans. They have a lot of utility work that they have to work out because there's a number of utility poles up and down both of those streets. They kind of impact the development of that site. But it's moving along. We just met with them, their group last week, and so hopefully they'll be resubmitting soon. In addition to that, from a residential standpoint, I'm sure everyone has seen off of Patbook Road up north, the old Chunky Joe's. That project was approved a couple of years ago, and that is called 2902 Apartments. And so they have broken ground, they're clearing, they've cleared a number of the trees that they're allowed to clear, and they're working on that project. We issued the permit, so they will be, I think they said that they plan on about 18 to 20 months for full construction, full build out. And that consists of 262 units total once they're fully built out. From an industrial standpoint, on the other side of town, right up against the railroad tracks and Old Cimarron, we have FM 1976 across from the gas station. You've probably seen there are 6 lots that are currently under construction. I think 3 or 4 of them have gone vertical. I talked to the owner today, and he said that their schedule is to finish at least 3 of those white boxes in May. And so they don't have any tenants currently lined up. They said based on the customers or the tenants that they're gonna probably have filled those suites that they don't think that far ahead, so they'll probably get some of them lined up in April. Let's see. Also wanted to just mention, currently not under construction, but kind of under construction, is the UC Vision 35 Comprehensive Plan update. So we've been working with Matrix Design, our consultants, as well as some of the focus groups, putting together the website, and so that's moving along quite nicely. Okay, future construction. So right now we have 8 total projects. From a commercial standpoint, there's Orchard Park Commercial, which is that 2.5 acre lot fronting Orchard Park subdivision on 1518 on the other side of the creek. From a residential standpoint, as I mentioned, Cibolo Crossing, that'll be phases 2 and 3 for future construction. And then from a mixed use standpoint, we had a few PUDs recently. And so one of them is 1604 in Bird, the southeast side. That was the first one that came before you about a year and a half ago. And so I spoke to the owner today. He is still working out the CPS issues, and he said they've made some progress. He expects to hopefully, CPS won't put it in writing, but hopefully they'll have approval in the next 2 to 3 months, and then that project will probably accelerate from there. 2280 Pat Booker Road, another apartment complex as well as a self-storage facility. We just issued we completed or are ready to issue the permit for the apartment complex. We've already issued the permits for the storage facility. And so that is located in between Bahama Bucks and Napa Auto. So they're gonna break ground probably within the next month and a half. And let's see, over on 1604, across from the Reunion project, there is a proposal for an outdoor volleyball facility. So we've met with them a few times, met with their entire group about 2 weeks ago, and we're currently awaiting we are reviewing some items that they sent to us, and they're really looking forward to probably breaking ground later this year, maybe early next year. And then Reunion is the bigger project that's on the horizon. We talked to Reunion more than likely based on the timeline because we have to install the infrastructure, the roadway work. Probably won't be getting any word from the master developer about tenants for about another 18 months is my guess. So we're probably going to break ground on putting in the roadway infrastructure at the end of this year, early next year. So right now we're almost at 60% on the design plans. So I think that's all I have right now. I think I answered everyone's questions who had asked them offline. I did update that slide for you, Mr. Rubal, so it does have all the view details. Yes, sir.
I think there's two that you didn't answer for me. I was wondering if you can touch on them, but I probably should know this, but the old Acme Lumber building, what's the use going to be?
So that's commercial retail. And so it'll be hopefully pure retail, but more than likely a mix.
Okay. I really like this update, and I like that you do it, and just for the future, if we could maybe incorporate, because you have the future construction on here, if we kind of had a running list of what is still out there, because there's lots of little tracks here in town that aren't necessarily on this list, but if we could kind of track it and say, this one could be a good spot for something like this. So when we get pitched an idea, we sort of know, absolutely, well, maybe that other spot would be better.
So I did listen to what you said, and this is that map. So this is all the developable parcels that are still available. And I didn't put in here, what, like 1976, where I talked about there's 11 total lots, and they're have half of them under construction. So I left those off because we've already approved the zoning entitlements, and they're under construction. So these are really the ones that are vacant. And have potential to be developed. So for example, you see the 2.5 acres in front of Orchard Park over in 1518. I don't have like right over there. And then this purple part is in the ETJ. And so we've been meeting with potential developer. It's actually Meritage Homes. And I think they came and gave a talk to you about a month and a half ago. So there's some potential there. We'll see if it comes to fruition. We have some other larger developments. We do have Reunion in here. And then let's see, Kitty Hawk Road, which is over here, that is fronting the Capano Ridge subdivision. So that is all zone C3 commercial. We're really gonna have to, is coming out of the comprehensive plan, as part of the land use evaluation, we might have to reevaluate whether that is the appropriate zoning for that, because that has been vacant forever. It's been zoned that way, I think, since 2007. And unfortunately, it's not right off of the major arterials, meaning 1604 and Kitty Hawk. It's kind of in between. And so I don't know if we're going to get retail there. In my estimation, it probably is better suited for some kind of office medical. But we'll have to reevaluate that moving forward. And then, let's see if there's any other large ones that jump out. Right over here off of Coronado. This is in front of the Coronado Shopping Center on both sides of Coronado. You have those two vacant properties. And so I really have not received any inquiries for development in the last 6 years. But there's potential, obviously.
Only one of them's for sale.
I just want to make sure I wrote this down right. So the road for North Lake, you said end of this year, early next year, like to start building the road? Sorry, like I know you said they're developed, but are like to actually like make a road?
Yeah, so end of the year, more than likely, probably the beginning of next year, this time next year.
Okay.
So we have to finish the plans. We're at about 60%, not quite. Once they get to 100%, then we'll put it out to bid. That takes a little bit of time, and then we'll award the contract, and then they'll have to set up a date to start.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Thank you for incorporating some of the changes, some of the thoughts that gone offline. I do not see them in the agenda presentation, but I did see annotations on your presentation here. So your presentation here is updated from what's in the agenda package.
That's correct.
And the only question then that I have is the time frame for the development of items 1 through 14 that are completed. Approximately what span of time is required for completion of projects?
How long did it take to complete the completed projects?
Right. For example, there are elements in here that seem to have been completed several years ago.
So I guess you can give me guidance as to how far back you'd like me to go.
No, I want to know what this report represents time-wise, year-wise.
Last 6 years, I guess. 5 years, I think it's 2020 is when I.
Okay,
So that wasn't on the original report. My eyes are not good enough to see it on the new report. It's not on. Thank you.
Yeah, but if you'd like a smaller snapshot, that's.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Casatella. Mr. Cassava. And thank you now for a financial report.
Christine, before you get started, could somebody please look and see if they can figure this van out? Sorry.
Off now?
Oh, yes, when she was out there.
Just double checking.
Yes.
I don't know if she does, but I want it off.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Thank
We
you
gotta
very
make
much.
sure, we gotta make sure the council is coming.
There are plenty of women out here who understand what we're talking about.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As of December 31st, 2024, the city completed 25% of its fiscal year. Revenue expenditure summaries for the general, utility, stormwater, and golf course funds, as well as the investment report for the first quarter have been provided for your review. The summary of the general fund, revenues exceeded expenditures by approximately $3.1 million. This surplus is mainly attributed to the ad valorem tax revenue collections. Year-to-date ad valorem revenue stands at $5.1 million, which represents 56% of the anticipated budget. The utility fund revenues exceeded expenditures by $458,000, and water revenues as of December 31st were at 1.4, which is 29% of the budget. Sewer revenue was at 1.2 million, which is 25% of the budget. Stormwater expenditures exceeded revenues by $100,000. Stormwater revenue was $210,000, or 25% of the anticipated budget. Golf course revenues exceeded expenditures by $666,000. The transfer of the venue tax for the golf course of $500,000, or 43% of the budgeted amount, has been made. There's a remaining $675,000 to be transferred from the venue tax for the total budgeted transfer of $1.1 million. The report also includes the beginning and ending balances along with interest earned for each of the bank accounts that the city has. And that's all I have.
Any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. This presentation for the flock program.
Thank you, sir. We're going to look at please handle this one. Mr. Halsey.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. I'm here to speak tonight about the flock program. Hopefully I can explain how the system works, how we use the system, and what protections we've put in place that will be some of the concerns of some of the citizens. We started the operation of installation in early November on the cameras that are installed. We now have 12 cameras, flock cameras stationed throughout the city. They're mainly stationed at points of entry from other jurisdictions coming into the city, and then in higher crime areas where we can use the information to help investigation purposes. The purpose of the cameras, what they do is they assist us in identifying vehicles involved in criminal activity. We do that through alerts and searches or through hot lists. There's no live monitoring. You can't even see a live monitor. How do I get to my screen? Okay. So when we pull up the system, that's what we see. There's nothing on there. There's no live images that happen. What the system does is the three ways that we get information from this is by alerts, and that's if the state, through the Texas Criminal Information Center, enters a stolen vehicle, a stolen plate, a wanted person, or an Amber Alert. Those vehicles are flagged and they're in the system. If a vehicle passes one of our cameras, it will alert dispatch and our officers that there's an alert on that vehicle. Our officers are then dispatched or try to respond to the area to try to find that vehicle and locate that. The second method is through searching. And that's when an officer responds to a call, takes a report of a crime that happened, and is given a vehicle description, a partial license plate, maybe a full license plate. We can then go into the system and search for a vehicle that matches that description. You see up on right here in the search reason,
That is a mandatory field. If an officer goes in to make a search, they have to put a case number into that field. And that way, for our audit purposes, we can go back and know what every single search that was conducted in the system was for. The third thing is a hot list entry, which is when we identify a suspect vehicle that we know for certain is it or a person that drives a suspect vehicle, we can enter that onto a hot list and get a notification when that vehicle passes one of our cameras up. And again, try to respond to the area and catch that person. That's a specific search for a specific person that we do. Outside of those things, when you go to alerts up here, I'll just pull up the last. Any kind of search we do or any kind of alert we get, if this will work, this is what we get. It's the back of a vehicle and a license plate. The difference between flock and traditional LPRs is we don't get any identifying information from the vehicle. It doesn't tell us the registered owner, it doesn't tell us an address of where that vehicle lives or belongs to. Of course, we can get that off of the license plate that it gives us, but the camera itself does not keep that information, it doesn't store it. It's simply a photo. It recognizes the make, the model, the color of a vehicle, and any distinguishing characteristics that it might have. Bumper stickers, toolboxes, ladders, different search parameters that we can use based on the description that we were given by a victim. It does not take any front-facing photos of the vehicle, so therefore we do not get any photos of the occupants of the vehicle. So at best, what we can tell by using the flock system is that a specific model of vehicle passed the camera at a certain time. That's it. We get no further information than that. Any search conducted has to have a case number, like I said, that'll help us with the audits. There's also the transparency portal for anyone who is interested to go look. If you go to the city website, under government and over to the transparent government, scroll down, and the first one is our ALPR. This is Flock's transparency portal, but it's Universal Cities, but it's from the Flock system. Our policy is right here. That is our full Universal City Police Department policy on how we use this system. If you ever have problems sleeping, you want to go over there and take an hour to read that, it might help. If you scroll down, it'll tell you last 30 days tracked, the number of vehicles that have gone through, hot list hits, searches that have been conducted. So this is 229,000 photos taken, 212 hot listed alerts, and 86 searches that we've done. 86 searches out of 229,000 is 0.0003%. So you can see the level of searching that goes into the number of vehicles that are actually in front of the system and picked up. Much like all of the computer systems and the things that we have in our department, there is a level of accountability that the officers have to face. Any system can be abused. We're in a technology age now. Any system can be hacked. Those things happen. It's what we take cyber training monthly across all departments here, every single month, over and over again, because it's that important. But it's also that it's real. That's the world that we live in. I've been here 25 years. I don't think we've ever had a reputation of an officer that has stepped out of line and used information that they weren't supposed to get or weren't supposed to use. We work very hard to hire the right caliber of officer that doesn't do those kind of things. And the chief and I are going to continue to do that. We're going to continue with our audits. And we will use the system to help benefit the investigators and the officers that are here and the citizens when they're victimized. In December, we had a robbery suspect that actually committed one robbery, attempted another one, a couple days apart. We were able to get a vehicle description, located a vehicle that matched, put a hot list on it, found the vehicle the same night that it was entered, and made an arrest, and the guy confessed to both robberies. We caught a counterfeiting ring that uses credit card skimmers to create phone credit cards. Then they go to gas stations and they buy hundreds of dollars of fuel using those fake credit cards that go back to a victim who had their credit card stolen. And then they sell that fuel on the black market. They go around construction sites and sell it out of the back of the truck for pennies on the dollar. That is an actual ring of several people that do that. Same thing, we took a vehicle description, we entered it in, we found a matching vehicle, put a hot list on it. Very next day, pulled the vehicle over, we made an arrest of it, not the suspect from the first one, but same vehicle, arrested a second person from it with more credit cards and identifying information. those are cases that would have been very, very difficult or likely never solved because we were going strictly off of a vehicle description. And to say black F-150 just to make up a vehicle, how many are there? And that's what we get a lot of times. Well, it was a black F-150. Well, now we can start saying, well, did it have a bumper sticker? Did it do this? Did it do that? And we can actually look on here and find vehicles that match that and create a list of possible potential suspects based on that. I think that's it. As far as the lawsuit in Virginia, my understanding of that case is that person is trying to equate this to tracking someone's cell phone from tower to tower to tower. Again, we only see a vehicle in front of a camera. It's not a person's personal identifying information like a phone that has tracked every movement everywhere they go. The only thing we can tell is that they passed this camera and maybe they passed this one or another one. But it's not a constant track of where a person's movements always go. We can only see the cameras that they went by. And license plates are issued by the government for the express purpose of identification. And there have been numerous court cases in the past, and the courts have consistently found that there's no reasonable expectation of privacy on a license plate information on a vehicle on a public roadway. Any questions?
I definitely see the potential for good catching some bad guys, but I always have to kind of weigh that with the privacy concerns. And so, just to ask you the questions and have you answer, what you guys have put in place a little bit more. Can anybody in the police department do a search, or is it limited to a small group of people that might be trained on what the proper searches are?
Any officer can search the system with a case number. They have to have a case number which is generated through dispatch, has to have a valid reason for their search. To obtain a case number, you have to have a valid reason. So to get a case number, they have to enter that in there, then they can do the search. To create a hot list or put a specific vehicle on a hot list, that has to be done by an administrator, not a patrol level officer cannot do that. Even corporals can't do it. It's got to be a sergeant that would create that. We've heard mentioned before that people say, well, what if a guy wanted to know where his wife was at when he's on duty and he could enter her vehicle in here and give him an alert every time she pops up on the camera? He would have to go to a supervisor and explain why he wants to create that hot list, and they can still have to have a case number. So when we do audits, we pull an audit up, it's got to have a case number there. If something seems out of line, then we have that tracks back to the person where we go back and talk to them, hey, why isn't this right, or why isn't that there? They have to explain, and then it becomes a disciplinary issue if you start to find issues with officers not complying.
Sure. Okay. It might be something to consider if you narrow the pool a little bit. That might reduce a little bit of risk, but just some feedback. I guess the other question I have is on the website, it lists all the organizations that have access to our data, and I kind of understand our police department being able to search it. Is there a need for that many organizations to have access to the cameras in our town, or?
It's a data sharing system. Not everybody gets to see everything. They have their policy, same as we have ours. What that does is, if we create a hot list, it's a hot list for Universal City unless we open it up further than that. It doesn't go to Wiley, Texas, or whatever that last one is on there. But the strength of the system is in the numbers of being able to detect a vehicle in other agencies around us, other parts of the state. As a matter of fact, last week, Austin PD issued an arrest warrant for a person on a felony hit and run. The same day the warrant was issued, we caught the vehicle here and arrested the person that was wanted for that offense. So it is something that's beneficial. It's something that helps. We've had jugging cases in the past where people sit outside of a bank and watch a person leave, follow them to where they go, they break into the car. A lot of those come out of Houston. So they're here for the day, they hit a couple different places, and they're back in Houston. We're never going to see that car again. We're never going to know about it. And so that's why that sort of data sharing, network sharing is beneficial.
And I can completely understand that. And I see if you had a car identified, and you're saying, has anybody seen this car? If there's a way to limit it to where Wiley, Texas can't just decide to search Universal City cameras, where they have to come ask and say, hey, can we search for this particular scenario or something like that? If there's an opportunity to do that, maybe just carve out a little bit smaller pie of people that are in the data, that would be great. But that's all right there.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Rubal?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's obviously not the vehicle that does the crime. It's the perpetrator that does the crime. And what we're looking at is vehicle identification. So how do you assess the risk for a wrongful arrest? Perhaps the vehicle's involved, but the person is not.
Well, I mean, that's police work. That's what we do every day in any kind of investigation that we do. We understand that it's a vehicle that we're looking for with a person of interest that may or may not be in it. So the fact that a vehicle was seen at an offense, we know very well that the actor may not be in that vehicle when we see it or stop it. But it's an opportunity to identify who is in the vehicle. Perhaps it's that person, perhaps it's a family member, perhaps we get other investigative leads from that. But it's certainly no automatic arrest because the vehicle has been,
Any other questions? Very informative. Thank you very much. Chief, you have something to say?
Yeah, no, I would just like to add, thank you, Chief, excellent report, very succinct and matter of fact. No, I would like to add, I didn't catch what you wanted us to call down, Councilman. Did you want us to call down the hot list access from administrative purposes or for the general search for our officers?
I guess the way I understand the website, it could be completely wrong, but there's a lot of organizations that it says have access. And so
Okay, I caught that part, but I thought there was one before that didn't you
yeah, internally, so it's not that every single officer would have access to it, but maybe you have a small group of people that you have to come and say, can you search for this particular?
We can certainly look at that. The hindrance there is someone's off and you got 12 hours for the next shift. So, but we can certainly look at maybe 2 per shift or something so that you've got better odds of having somebody on and minimizing that, certainly. I think the control mechanisms in place are as good, they're as good as today's technology allows to be. So it's 2025. I mean, that's what every control mechanism we have, whether it's logging into our own stuff here or anywhere else. In fact, they go further because you have to pull, and the number you get comes from a dispatch terminal, which is highly monitored out of Austin, and the access to those to get those case numbers is not simple. It's not willy-nilly, and it's not something an officer can manufacture. So we really like that control mechanism. And then lastly, I would just like to say, Mr. Snyder's assertion that he has cameras in the radar detector in his front yard because of retaliation of police is news to me. He's never been anything but complimentary to our staff, to those we've hired, to how we conduct business. So that I'm dismayed and shocked to hear that. And so for what that's worth, I would love for you to reach out to me, Mr. Snyder.
It's your department here. It's the other departments.
Oh, thank you for clarifying. When you said it, I didn't get the other. I just thought you said because of police retaliation, I was concerned it was ours. Thank you. And thank you, Councilman and Mayor.
Appreciate it. Now we move over to a public hearing. At this time, the public will be invited to address each of the items listed in the section. And who is going to do us a preview of this before we start out?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let's see. I think that's fine. The photos will be helpful. Yeah. Okay, so what we have before you tonight is a public hearing for the property at 438 and 436 East Wright Boulevard. And so they are requesting an ADU or an accessory dwelling unit. The property is zoned.
Excuse me, Mark. Yes, sir. Can we shut that door? Hey, Chief, can you shut that door, please? I'm a one banana monkey. I couldn't hear 2 conversations.
I'll let you go and take it. So I'll start over. 436 and 438 East Wright Boulevard. They're requesting an accessory dwelling unit, otherwise known as an ADU. The property is zoned ROT, Old Town Residential, and therefore in that district, in order to have an ADU, you need to be granted a specific use permit, which is why they're here today. So this did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission last month. Did receive a vote to approve, a recommendation of approval of 8-1. So I'll just point out some of the highlights of the property. So there is an existing, let's see here if I can, there's an existing shed on this property, which is right here, depicted here. And so what the owner would like to do is tear down that shed, remove the fence as well, so there won't be a fence in between, and then build a new accessory dwelling unit. As part of the application and the memo that you have, we provided the architectural plans, which includes the site plan as well as some of the architectural details. We also identified those in the packet. From a zoning standpoint, I'd like to pull those up. Let's see here. Maribel, can you help me out?
Yeah,
Just
we're
find
trying to
the architectural plans. And maybe zoom down a little. So, again, this is situated on two different zoning lots, okay? And that's kind of a unique situation. That's due to the history of that property. We believe, based on our research, that at some point in the past, way back in the past, 67 years ago, that after the original plat for that area of town, we believe that they actually wanted to end the subdivision or development basically next door where the shed currently exists, and that was going to be a roadway that went north and south. Obviously that never happened. Additional development happened east, and so you had this smaller than normal lot in between two homes, and at some point in the more recent past, it split. So this property received half, the property next door received the other half, and then more recently someone built, actually I think it was built in the 70s, they built the shed, not this current property owner, but whoever owned it back then. So that's the background for this property. What they're proposing is an 864 square foot accessory dwelling unit. It will have a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a full bathroom, and a laundry room. They're also proposing to provide an addition to their existing home, which will be about 600 square feet. The property itself has a 2-car garage existing and a long driveway. There is not a sidewalk on that side of the street, so they could fit 2 cars on the driveway. So therefore that would provide 4 parking spaces, which meets the code. The code requires an additional parking space for the ADU. The 10-foot height maximum is reached, and let's see, they will meet the side yard setbacks as well as the lot coverage. And so, as I mentioned, this did go before Planning and Zoning last week. We had a lively discussion. We did receive, as required, well, we sent out neighbor notices to properties within 200 feet, and we received 5 responses, all in objection to the ADU. And I believe that some of those folks who spoke in opposition to the ADU at P&Z are here tonight. I don't know if they'll speak, but we did provide you with those letters. So, you know, in summary, I think there was a lot of discussion from the neighbors about the current tenants who are there, because this property is not owner occupied, they are renting this out. So we kind of had to, take that information in, but also remember the purview of what the request is. This is a zoning request for an ADU that is permitted if granted through a specific use permit. The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions. And just one last thing, as you know, unity of title is something that you passed about 2 months ago. And so that allows for, as I mentioned before, this property consists of 2 lots. Traditionally, you would not be able to build across lot lines. You would have to replat and basically consolidate those lots into one zoning lot. But the unity of title agreement does allow for the property owner to basically build across those lots as long as it stays within one ownership, and that agreement is recorded at the county. And so that unity of title does apply to this case. That's all I have.
Any comments? It is 8:56. We'll open up the public hearing. I have 3 people signed up for the public hearing this evening. Joe Redwine.
Oh, I didn't know which one you
No problem. No problem, sir. Alexandria Williams.
Okay. Okay, so Alexandra Williams, I live at 430 East Wright Bulman. So I just wrote down some things. So see something, say something. So October 2022, the house was purchased, I guess, about $185,000. They remodeled the whole kitchen. They fixed the foundation in the back. They fixed the family room. It was separated. It had like a big old crack. They changed the flooring. They made the shed a little house. They put a new bathroom in that little shed. They put a kitchenette in there. So I guess they put, I don't know, $75,000. I live right next door, so I see everything. So they put it on the market, try to sell for about $325,000. Then June 2023, they rented it, and they sliced it into like 3 properties. Tenants did not care about the neighborhood, trash in front of the yard, loud music going on, trailer with trash. Over 3 weeks is still sitting there. So now January 2025, now the owner states that they will live in a house and have a mother-in-law unit. So key facts, close neighbors, never seen or met the person until the meeting. He wants to spend, I guess, about $75K, I guess, for the unit. Later on, add on to the house, I guess, $20K. So the total would be under $450,000, whatever. So question is, who does this? You know, maybe someone who loves the neighborhood, doesn't mind, overspending the neighborhood. Neighborhood is like $250,000, if that. On the average, it's about $225,000. So my opinion is not true. So 3 years, they own this house and don't even know the neighbors. So you want to spend, all that money and you don't even know the neighbors. So do not know the rent. So the person that owns the house don't even know the renters that they rent to. They make a mess in the neighborhood. So all the facts to have a higher turnover of residents. So that's just my own opinion. And I don't care, they care about who they rent to for the last 3 years. That's what I've seen. We're living next door. And so something different that I wanted to add, someone said, about a street light. So if this is going to be like a high-end hotel, you spend all this money and you say that you're going to live in it, and there's really no security for the neighbors. Now, I'm not an older person necessarily in the neighborhood. Everyone else is. I'm just more so the mouthpiece. And I just want to just put down the facts. Again, see something, say something. So, and then, I guess, I don't know, the current house that they live in, I guess they bought it about the same time. So you have all these homes that you're, just buying. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
You're welcome.
I have Kim Eilhart.
Kim Eilhart, 736 Garden Meadow Drive, and right quick, everyone, before you write your CBD letters, think about all those potheads who use this stuff, because we don't like to take pain pills. Okay, it's not all about little kids at the high schools. Thank you. Okay, onward. I read this proposal, and it's interesting that we have this little casita thing going on, and everyone's agreed with it up until now. And all of a sudden, you got neighbors that are all upset. And it's all out because the owner doesn't care. All right, this is not going to be a casita with kids living here and mama living in back. It's going to be 2 separate rental properties. You can tell that reading the application. The house is going to be the size of my house. Okay, it's not a little tiny little thing. It's not going to be owner-occupied. It's not even owner-occupied. First of all, it's bigger. It's the size of my house, which is bigger than allowed by our own ordinance, because he might maybe add on to the house to get it up to the size it's supposed to be today before he comes and asks us for permission. But it's not there yet. Okay? If it's going to be 2 separate rental properties, why don't you do something nice for the neighbors and put in a driveway? Because no one's going to be knocking on the house next door and jockeying cars. The house next door is going to have the driveway, and the little casita is going to park on the street. More problems with the neighbors. It doesn't take that much to be a good neighbor, So I ask that y'all try to listen to what the neighbors are saying. They weren't very eloquent. They're not very young. But they made their point, okay? They're asking for a good neighbor. They're not asking for an owner who lives in shirts and dumps on University City. And they've lived here a really long time. I've looked them up in Dare County. They've all lived, I think wrote those letters have lived here a long time, and they're all older. You know, a little respect for the older generation isn't done through building a casita. It's done by listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. I have no one else have signed up for this, but since this is a public hearing, I give the opportunity to anyone else who would like to stand up and address the situation or the concerns with this subject. Going once, going twice. At 8:03, the meeting is closed. Open meeting is closed. And ready for discussion? Council discussion?
Are there announcements first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, before we get to the end, we will. My apologies. Thank you for calling.
Sorry.
Well done. No, don't want that. Okay, now we come to city manager announcements.
Thank you. Some of you may remember Megan Santee. She was our city attorney on loan from the Austin office of Denton Navarro, Tylenol, and Zach and Santee and Rodriguez. Thank you. Got them all. She did suddenly pass away last week. Very unfortunate for her family. There will be a celebration of life on February 16th from 1:30 to 4. That is going to be at the Blvd Hall in the Schertz Civic Center. That address is 1400 Schertz Parkway, and it's in building number 5. It's the one behind City Hall. For some good news, Michael had mentioned the comprehensive plan. When you all get home this evening, you will have a lovely little email waiting for you that has your link to the UC comprehensive plan. And it also has a link on there for you to be the first, hopefully, 7 people who take the community survey that is on that particular page. Now, you can just go to that page and actually take the survey. I sent you the link in case you wanted to forward that on after you've done it. We're really asking not only the council members, but everybody that was part of the immediate focus groups that we've had to use your sphere of influence and to send that survey out to as many as people as we can. Now, that survey is not just for adults. Let's just get that across right. We have some groups that we're going to be doing at the library. We're going to have a big group at the Snow Fest, and we want people of all ages, demographics, to be taking that survey so that we have some well-rounded input for the planning and zoning and the city council and the citizens as a whole, to have an input in that and for the council to make the final decision. So if you would please take your test as quickly as you can and then pass it on to as many people as you can. We greatly appreciate that. Speaking of websites, the much-awaited launch of the revamping of the Universal City webpage, that will actually come out on Thursday, late in the afternoon. We are about, I would say at this point, 65% away with the complete revamp. You'll have a significant notice of lack of words and a lot of pictures. So it is very modern, and we hope you appreciate it. Search for things on there, look for things on there. If you find something missing or a link broken, we greatly appreciate it if anybody would let us know that. Although we've got a good staff working on that, you know, it's like anything else. Technology works for you and technology works against you. Lastly, I want to remind you that on February 15th is Snowfest. That is from 1 to 8. Please let us know you're coming so that we can greet you at the gate and get you in and let you go about and have a good time and mingle with, you know, what we hope to be 6,000 to 8,000 of our dearest friends and neighbors. And then I also wanted to give you just a really quick update on the Kitty Hawk Service Road. That's the one that is the end of Kitty Hawk on this side of the city. What direction is that? Somebody tell me. North. Sounds like north. Going over through the creek and popping up on the ETJ on the other side of Civil Creek. So if you've been down in there, and I'm guessing most of you haven't, probably Mr. Rubal's been the only one since he walks so much, the retaining walls are up. They're laying concrete now, and the lights are also being installed. So soon after that, we hope to see a parking lot and some bathrooms and just let people go down there and, well, not drive through there, but they could park and walk through that particular park area. And then our police and fire and public works will have the emergency access they need to get to our neighbors and our neighbors' homes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Mayor announcements, actually, I've got quite a few to do here. It's going to be kind of education day, catch up. First of all, we do have the Judson School District in our city. We also have the Church Cibolo Universal City School District in our view. We work with all the school districts, and I know we have to, sometimes we get the information, some close, some new ones, and things of this nature. But we do work closely with them, and Universal City just recently, we were sent a little Community Builders Award, got the Golden Apple. I thought that was really kind of nice. Also, the plaque certificate of recognition for the Universal City, also from the Church Cibolo School District. I think what is really the gem is a nice little letter from the superintendent, but really and truly the kids. This come up. So I'm going to put it here for a little bit for review. Part of the education also is we have a sorority here that is a proclamation today for the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and it's from the Bexar Area Alumni Chapter Founders Day, which was February 1st. Doctor, if you and your crew would come down, Councilmember Putt is going to read the proclamation. This has been around, this is a proclamation honoring 112 years of this chapter. I think this is a noteworthy, please come over here, don't be shy, don't be shy. 112 years of the sorority, I knew that, and I said the chapter, my apologies for the sorority. But that is a notable achievement based on education. Councilmember Putt.
Ready? Whereas Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. was founded on January 13, 1913 by 22 collegiate women at Howard University to promote academic excellence and assist those in need. And whereas the founders envisioned an organization committed to sisterhood, scholarship service, and addressing the social issues of the time. And whereas, since its founding, Delta Sigma Theta has become one of the preeminent service-based sororities with more than 300,000 initiated members and over 1,000 chartered chapters worldwide. And whereas on April 12, 2014, Delta Sigma Theta Inc. chartered its 1031st chapter, the Bexar County Alumni Chapter, which proudly serves and supports municipalities in the Bexar, Comal, and Guadalupe counties, which includes Universal City. And whereas the goal of the Bexar Area Alumni Chapter is to positively impact their service areas through multiple means of activism, including educational and economic development initiatives and social action pursuits.
Now, therefore, I, Tom Maxwell, Mayor of Universal City, on the 4th day of February 2025, however intended to be proclaimed the 21st day of January 2025, that the City Council of the City of Universal City hereby proclaim February 1, 2025 as Delta Sigma Theta Bexar Area Alumni Chapter Founders Day, and doing so joins the Bexar Area Alumni Chapter in celebrating the commemoration of this Founders Day. Sign me.
All right.
Photos.
All right. Everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
All right. I just want to say on behalf of the Bexar Area Alumni Chapter, my name is Dr. Vanessa Nason. I'm the chapter president. And we just would like to thank you, Mayor, council members, and Universal City residents. Thank you all for presenting this proclamation to our chapter to recognize our 112 years of the sorority being established. And we're going into 11 years of Bexar Area Alumni Chapter being established. As mentioned, we do service Bexar, Guadalupe, and Comal County. So you'll see us in our red and white servicing the community. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for your dedication. Now, for council member comments, we'll start with Councilmember Rubal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If possible, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put on a future agenda the status of the traffic management system for emergency services to reach the other side of Kitty Hawk, that is past 1604. This was actually an initiative started by Councilmember Neville. And basically, I know there were some issues associated with grants and funding, but just as we're spending $2.2 million for access and speed of emergency service vehicles to our new developed areas, we have to consider exactly what's going on the east side of town. With regard to Mr. Neville, I would like to also propose consideration for the council to name the park after Mr. Neville, that is within his neighborhood, because of his long service in the city of Universal City. So I'd like to put both of those items on the agenda.
Okay, good comments. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. I'm a resident of Coronado Village, and I wanted just to make a comment that I think it's important for all of us to share our thoughts with the school district. It is very impactful for our community to lose have one more elementary school closed. We've lost, that'll be the third one. I will not be able to attend the board meeting on the 20th, but I am going to write all of the members of the school board so they'll know how I feel about it as a resident. And I encourage people to have people attend that meeting to share their thoughts, but if they can't attend, to also write, because they do read those. They are very thoughtful about that. And so I think that that's a good way for us to at least get it out there. And I will say that I know we don't have any power over that as a city, as a municipality. It's school property and they get to repurpose that however they decide to repurpose that. They can do it with our thoughts and opinions, certainly. But I've been attending the meetings and I plan on being very thoughtful in making sure I understand what they're saying they're going to do to keep the neighborhood safe and to actually monitor that once it is repurposed to make sure that they are following through with what they said they would. And if they don't, then to provide that feedback and go and talk to them again in the future. So I think we have to be very proactive in what's going to happen with that school property. And then the other thing is, I'm going to shift gears very quickly. We have Designer Purse Bingo coming up. It's going to be March 8th. That is where we raise money to Parks Partners host it. And we raise money to put shade structures in our Universal City parks over the playground equipment. Tickets go on sale on the 12th. So if you guys want to attend and you want to give a hint to your husband to buy you a ticket as Valentine's Day gift, it's a great evening. The tickets are $50. It will serve you a dinner, 2 drinks, and 10 rounds of bingo with 9 cards for each game. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
And it sells out fast, so be looking for it if you are interested. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Putt?
So back in the day when people would see employees that went over and beyond, they would write a letter and then that would go in their files. And it doesn't happen as much, I don't think anymore. They go on Facebook, they go on social media. But we've had a busy week with our public works, and I just want to kind of bring a couple things up that were written about them. They're kind of our unsung workers in town. One person just wrote, I wanted to take a moment to thank the UC Public Works Department for their professional and kindness. First, I must give an apology. I didn't even think to get their names. They came out to change our water meter. They were very polite, professional, and caring. They told me what to expect, and they exceeded expectations. Thank you very much. These guys were just doing their jobs. Then we had another one. I want to thank Jason and 2 other City Public Works employees that my 5-year-old grandson met today at the park. They were so kind and made our visit enjoyable. My grandson enjoyed visiting with them very much. I'm a happy grandmother. So it's just really nice to see these guys get a lot of credit because they're wonderful. And I want to do one more shout out. We have one of our firemen just got promoted His name is Zach Moore, and he is now Lieutenant Zach Moore. And he's been with the fire department for quite a while, but 9 years. But he is just one of the most outstanding employees that we have. So we've got a lot of really good people that work for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bulman?
Kind of what Christina Fitzpatrick was saying about, I've heard everyone's complaints about the school. I used to live on Valencia, so I know that neighborhood really well. I loved living in Coronado. But I don't know, like I said, how much city council can do because it's the school district's property. And so like I said, I think it is really important to make sure that you're heard at those school board meetings. I think if it does become, an alternative school and there are police issues, I think Police Chief Siemens is very easy to get a hold of, very awesome and very good about getting back to people. So I think if he has issues, I think he would definitely let the city know and everyone else know. But I also think you guys could go to him via email or whatnot and let him know that, if you guys are seeing things and having concerns. But I think, it's a hard one because, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of us can do it besides the school board. That's my thoughts on that.
Mr. Mayor, do you think it would be appropriate if before we start action items, we could take a quick restroom break since it's 8:30?
Can we finish the?
Yep, we're done. But before action items, yeah. Thanks.
Councilmember Goolsby, how sad do you have to go to the bathroom?
Well, I can go. I just want to know if that's going to be in the minutes.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. So I apologize. I actually have a list. So I do understand when people don't seem to understand what 20 miles an hour means down my street. They may get sprinkled with a water hose. They may get foul language thrown their way. If they're behind me and I'm driving on my street, I will go around the block at 20 miles an hour and let them figure it out. So I understand the frustrations of speeders in UC. The issue with the Coronado Village, I would be curious to see if we could have that as a discussion at the council as to what our options are.
So I believe Mayor Maxwell has it on the agenda in March for someone from Judson to come and speak to City Council.
And I believe I heard they're voting on it before then, possibly. I wonder if we couldn't invite every one of them to come and have a discussion with us. I wouldn't be offended if we invited every single board member and the superintendent, and I will happily sign my name to it, saying, y'all need to bring yourselves over here because there's a lot of bonds that have been passed that probably wouldn't have been passed without the support of Universal City.
So I have no objections inviting them. However, we have no control over the board members' vote.
No, and I understand. But I would love for them to hear in our city, not sitting in their nice little box there, but come over and play in our sandbox, and let's let them hear what local people have to say. It's probably easier for people to get here than it is over there as well. I'd be curious to see if that's a possibility. We probably won't get many takers. I can see 2 of them for sure that would be here. And those are the 2 that would probably be willing to support Universal City as much as they possibly could. So good. There's that. I love the idea of Dick Neville Park.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That just is amazing to me.
I'm sorry. Mr. Rubal was speaking, there was audience and the fans, and we didn't even hear what he said, so.
Would like to, there's the possibility, the discussion to rename the park, and I believe it's Wagon Crossing or something, or whatever the park is over there, Dick Neville, or him and his wife.
Mr. Winston about that.
Yeah, that would be fun. And then, I had another one.
But somebody's gotta go to the bathroom, it's not just you. And then, the loss of Miss Santee was devastating. I hated that. She was so, I mean, not that you're not amazing, but just she was so much fun, and she was actually willing to harass me on a regular basis, so I do miss her. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Goolsby. We have people that are volunteering to harass you. Mr. Putt.
Just to go on that same Coronado, I know it would be helpful if we all reached out, but I don't know if there's also an opportunity to maybe put like a joint city council statement on the next agenda that maybe we draft and send that says all of us, here's what we would like and what we've heard from the citizens. So, I mean, that would be difficult to coordinate, but something for maybe the mayor and staff to talk about. If it's something that's doable next council meeting, that would be great.
Can't hurt it. Yeah. Okay.
Something, Mayor.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take under advisement that your 6 comments and put it under the mayor's memo, and we'll send them to the board and see what happens. Right then to the 20th. Sound fair? So, any other comments? Before we go, let's, it is 8:17. Let's take a break to 8:30 for a quick bathroom break. Gentlemen, I promise if you stick around, you'll be going to watch a paint run.
And get crime statistics on the other side.
Call the meeting back to order again. It's 8:31.
Yeah, I really like it. It's really
Not robots.
Yeah. Seriously, robot.
Okay. Number 8, considered agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be reaching the city council and will be enacted in one motion. Any discussion on anything separately? Call for motion.
Second.
Just to note, there were amendments made to the minutes. Just want to make sure that the people motioning understand that there were amendments made to the minutes.
All right, move to approve with amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Still seconding.
Okay, any discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Putt?
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Approved. Okay, action items. A, ordinance 655T 2025, specific use permit 436, 438 East Wright Boulevard. Call for a motion. You don't want a
Here,
motion?
I'm going to read the language. After conducting a public hearing on the request for specific use permit for the property at 436, 438 East Wright Boulevard, and receiving the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, City Council has considered the request and moves to approve PC 620 SU 028 and to grant specific use permit to allow an accessory residential unit used to Jose Alex Barrera with the following condition. The unity of title agreement will need to be recorded at the county prior to the issuance of the building permit.
I'll second.
Okay, we're going to go to discussion here in a second, but I want to give Mr. Guerrera the opportunity to come up and answer any questions. He did not take the opportunity during the Open Meetings Act, so this way you can ask any questions that you may have, and he may have any statements that he may have concerning it. So, with that being said, we're open for council discussion, not public discussion. Please.
Go ahead.
My name is Jose Alejandro Barrera. I'm the owner at 436, 438 East Wright Boulevard. Any questions you guys might have for me?
Does anybody have? Just move on.
Yes, sir, just to confirm, you are not a resident of the property.
That is correct.
Number 2, it's called a mother, in some of our documentation, it's called a mother-in-law suite, but it's really not a mother-in-law suite. There's no intention to put a mother-in-law in there. Is that correct?
Not a mother-in-law family member, my brother.
I'm sorry, sir?
My brother, not a mother-in-law, but a family member, my brother.
Sorry, I can't hear too well. And a third question would be, essentially, it appears that this building is actually quite large to be on that property. I know it meets zoning requirements, but essentially it looks like it's going to be a multiple family unit as you're expressing, rather than a single person unit, the 2 bedrooms and so forth. On the plat diagram, I can't remember which page it was on, the diagram shows the new building also coming out toward the street end, and it's designated as a new shed attached to the building that has a different architectural style on it. Is there going to be a shed in front of or attached to this mother-in-law suite?
You're asking if there's going to be a shed attached to the ADU?
Yes, on one of the diagrams it says a new shed that would be sort of in the front porch area.
Yeah, Mr. Rubal, can I just clarify for you? I think what you're looking at the survey. And you should be looking at the site plan, the architectural site plan. So the shed, the shed is going to be gone, and the ADU will be constructed. So there's not going to be 2 sheds or 2 buildings. There's going to be the existing house and the ADU.
It's just the survey part that, yeah.
It says new shed.
And I think what they're trying to do is show you where the existing one does, but then this one is, so it's going to correct itself with the easements being away from the fence. So that will no longer exist.
So we're looking at the architectural plot, and again, I think the terminology "new shed" refers to the fact that it's a new building, perhaps, rather would that be correct? Rather than a new shed. It's going to be the apartment building. It's not going to be an addition of a shed in front of the apartment. Is that correct?
Is this what you're looking at on the screen?
Yeah, I'm looking at A1.
Is it this document right here?
No, sir.
I think it's the next one that shows it has the existing shed, but it also has kind of shows where
This is what this is.
No.
One more.
No.
Okay, it says limits of new
This
shed.
one.
That new shed has the same dimensions of the floor plan of the house plan. I think instead of it saying new shed, it should say new structure. So that's all.
That's to answer the question, there will not be a shed attached to the new structure, so to speak.
Yes.
This drawing doesn't show kind of the plan to have it be street friendly, so are you planning on will there be, I know you're going to take the side fence down between the 2 buildings, correct?
That's correct.
Are you going to move the other fence that blocks the street view? That would be in front of it, and so they would have a walkway? Like, how are they going to access the house?
So there's a current gate now.
Okay, so they're going to use a gate, so you're not going to open up that fence?
Open up the fence to what is it?
I mean, take it down so that it's like a house versus, how you don't have a fence in front of a house?
Okay, the plan is not to take off the fence that's
In front of it,
Yes.
okay.
So there's access, like you mentioned, but the plan is not to take down.
And is there any appetite to put in an additional driveway? Because I drove the property today and I noticed that, and I read in the letters that there's a trailer parked in front of the house a lot, that they just, that they disconnected and it stays there, and I think they fill it with trash and take that to I'm not sure what but if that truck is always there and the people in the house have 2 cars, we know there's going to be an additional car probably in the street, which the neighbors are already talking about. So is there an appetite to put in another strip of cement so that there's an additional driveway for that house?
There's no current plan for that. As far as the trailer goes, it's not necessarily used to load trash It's a trailer that's used for construction work, so we take it to the job site, load up, throw in trash, and we kind of just park it there. I have no issue with finding a location for that trailer.
Because I noticed that there was a truck parked in the backyard too, so I mean, is there any reason why it couldn't be stored back there? I mean, I just think when you're adding an additional rental unit to a single-family street residence, I do think that you need to be sensitive to that because your neighbors are very dissatisfied with, you know, just those additional cars, additional people that is impactful for their lives. And I think that the more you can be sensitive to that, I think goes a long way. And all of the exceptions that we've made have been family related. So your brother, you said, is going to be the tenant of the new house?
Yes, sir.
Is he related to the people in the house, or are they going to be unrelated tenants? Not that that matters. I'm just asking for trying to get the picture of what's going on.
So I'll be occupying the home once the construction's being done. So I'll be occupying the house, and then he will be my family.
Okay, so you guys are going to move into the main house once the construction's done, once you add on to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
But I did hear about, the trailer finding a good location so that way it doesn't take up space on the street, so I will take care of it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on this one because I'm not sure. I feel like planning and zoning kind of missed a thing here. Like, he doesn't have, the size that he's requesting to build this isn't even what the house is. Like, it said it had to be a third or whatever it is on here. He doesn't meet that yet, but he's going to, maybe eventually we can enforce, kind of feels like cart before horse here. We're gonna give him this 856 square feet, even though he hasn't even done the add-on to the house yet, but we're gonna give him this ADU just because, and it also said right in your own documentation that it needed to be owner occupied, but also we can't enforce that. So kind of feels like we haven't even met all the basic requirements from planning and zoning, but yet it got approved and now we're here. And as I'm saying, there's no guarantees on any of this, and I don't, like I said, the neighbors don't agree with this. There was a lot of contention, I just feel like we haven't even hit the first step of him expanding his house first and then coming and doing the ADU in the correct size. So we're not even following the rules there, and I just don't think with the fence in front of it, it's not set up right. That's what I'm saying. I don't think this is fair. We've done these before, and the last one that we had was a true mother-in-law suite, and the neighbors came and supported it. So I think that's a big thing when the neighbors say, yes, we think this is a great idea, we're totally fine with it. This has had so much contention of 5, 6, 7 neighbors not wanting it. And I just don't think it fits for this area. It doesn't make sense to me. This house isn't the correct size. And then we're giving him an even bigger house. It doesn't, like I said, I don't think it fits for this. I don't think it's appropriate. I'm not for this one.
Thank you. I would be curious to hear from Mr. Casada on what Ms. Bulman just hit on, as far as the size of the house not matching what is required to build a accessory structure this size, an ADU of this size.
Right, so a couple of things. One is, as you had mentioned, with the addition, 600 square feet, it does meet that 1/3 that's identified in the code. However, the owner-occupied component has been nullified by state legislature, by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, because of short-term rentals, a ruling that they made. So that part is null and void. With regard to the size, I think we need to look at the intent and when this was written. And if you read the language in the code, the intent seems to be that it was talking about an addition to a house. And so they wanted to make sure that it was a smaller portion of the overall residence. I don't think that they were talking about a separate unit. So with that said, I know that one of the options you might have, if that's the only sticking point is the size, is to make the approval conditional that he meets the 1/3 size. And I think based on the conversations I've had with Alex as well as with his architect, that he would be willing to reduce that by 96 square feet in order to meet that condition.
when I did the math, it came out like 600, like 500, 600 square feet for what was already existing according to what's on Bear County. So unless Bear County has the wrong square footage.
Yeah, so if you go to by Bear County numbers, we're looking at living area 1408 square feet, attached utility 96 square feet, attached garage 460, and attached living area at 340. That comes to 2304. 1/3 of that is 768. The ADU is at 864. Just subtract those two, you get 96 square feet. So we have to go by the definition in our code for gross floor area, because that's the requirement. So basically, it's the outside walls, so you have to include the garage.
This one's very difficult because we have approved others that were essentially true mother-in-law quarters, right? It's,
well, purported to be true.
Well, exactly. Exactly. The neighbors all agree that this is a good situation. We don't get a lot, did we get any? Yes, let's go ahead and, I totally support this message. We didn't get any.
We did not.
But in the past ones that we've approved, we did get approvals from some of the neighbors.
I think they got some positive feedback, yes.
This one's just hard because if you haven't been a good neighbor, it's really hard to ask your neighbors to allow you to do something different. I'm just having a hard time with this one. I'm still kind of wishy-washy.
It is hard, but you have to remember that the Guerrero family has not been the neighbor. It's been the tenant that is leasing the house that has been the bad neighbor. Is that correct? You're not currently in the house?
I don't currently live in the house, but I guess I'm not clear as far as why they're being bad neighbors.
I'm not your neighbor. I couldn't tell you. I just know that they're not happy.
We'd have to listen to what, I mean, you can't just say bad neighbors not having good reason.
Not maintaining the lawn, leaving the trailer full of construction trash out front. I would be very frustrated if my neighbor did that on a regular basis. I would ask that not be something that we do on a regular basis, right? I don't mind it being an occasion.
It's not on a regular basis.
Understand? I'm still waiting for somebody to sway me one way or the other, so I'm going to yield.
May I ask, I got a clarification from me. The former resident, is that person, the resident, have they moved out, living somewhere, or are they still living there?
I'm sorry, what?
The so-called bad neighbors, are they still living there, or have they moved somewhere else?
It's my friend that actually lives there, and I'm his wife. So I know her personally. She's the one that lives there. I go to the house maybe like twice a week. I don't see trash in the front. You know, on top of that, we occupy it to her and we make it clear to her. She's very clean. The house is clean inside. So we don't understand where there's this mix match of where there's some neighbors that complain of stuff, some neighbors that don't. We live in an HOA. That's the reason why we parked the trailer there. We've always lived in 2-story houses. This is the perfect house for us. It's a 1-story. So we'd eventually like to move there for the reason being that it's a 1-story house. We're a family of 5. The bedroom's size is not there for us now. And that's the other reason why we'd like to expand. We need an additional bedroom for our oldest daughter, who will eventually go to college, but we want her to have her little space as well.
So the question is, you're actually moving into the house?
Yes, that's the plan.
I guess, and so the old neighbors will be not there.
And that's the second tenant, or the third tenant. So I don't know. Could you ask, is the bad neighbor gone? I don't know which bad neighbor you're referring to. That live there.
The former tenants, supposedly.
Well, she's been there for a year now. I know when you guys took a picture, there was just one piece of that furniture there. I was assuming that, or I'd seen it before. I was assuming that the trash was going to pick it up. They never did. It has been there for a couple months. As soon as they brought it to my attention, I picked it up, I think the same day. I mean, that's how the house mainly is most of the time. I don't see trash other than that piece of furniture there.
The house used to look ugly before. We like to flip houses. It wasn't in our interest to keep it. The market hasn't been the best, so we want to make the best of the situation and eventually move into it. We fell in love with the house after the fact, for the reason being that we've always lived in two-story houses, so it wasn't our purpose to keep it, but with the market being the way it is, we've decided to keep it. We fixed it up. It looks a lot nicer than what it did before. It had panels inside. We're adding value to the neighborhood. I know they're saying that we're making the neighborhood look like trash, but we have made the neighborhood look nicer for the reason being that we fixed up the house. So.
So, Michael, just to clarify, so occupancy can't be something that we would ask for, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about requiring an additional parking space? Is that something that we could
So
ask for?
they would meet the code requirement.
We're giving him the special privilege, right, he's having a grant, so I'm assuming that we have to come with strings if possible?
So I would defer that to our attorney.
Okay.
So your question is, can you add strings?
Well, that sounds bad.
Conditions.
Maybe condition. And I guess the two that I'm interested in is maybe that the fence that's in between, is it a possibility to require that to be removed and then maybe an additional parking space to alleviate some of the traffic considerations?
I think that if it matches with your code, that for the conditional additions, then you certainly can make that an amendment.
Does it match with their code?
So you mean yes, they can?
Yes, if it fits in with how you've done that.
Okay, so you'd have to make that conditional, you'd have to add that to the motion, but I just want to explore the parking because they have a 2-car garage and they have, again, there's no sidewalk in that, so they have enough depth in their driveway to park at least 2 vehicles. So it would seem that there's adequate parking right now. Plus, you can park on the street. So it seems like if they were to add an additional parking space, I guess that would be a flare that would come out on the side because I don't know if Public Works would grant them additional curb cut for a driveway.
Right, and that would be more expensive, but I would think if you have a flare, that would be the most economical. What about the fence in between? Is that
So he intends to take the fence down, I guess, that if you can add that as a condition of approval.
I feel like the house even butts up against where the fence is gonna be. Like,
Well, the
I don't
fence
think
is
the
coming
fence
down.
could,
Oh,
it could stay.
Yeah.
That's
This fence right here, he indicated that this will be coming down once the ADU, because the ADU would run into the
would
fence.
extend past that fence line.
Oh, I guess I got confused about the line of questioning earlier. So which fence did you say?
I was asking about both.
The new one is coming down.
So I think to answer your questions, this fence in the middle that's separating the house and the shed will come down. And then for access, they have a gate here already that leads to the shed.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then
Okay.
So there are 2 gates, one for the existing house and one for the shed property.
Okay. I share Councilmember Goolsby's angst about this. I want to allow people who own their property to do what they want to do with their property, but it's really difficult when we're asking to make exceptions that neighbors are not liking. So I think if we can come to some kind of compromise, that would be good. And I think for me, that would be the addition as a contingency and maybe trying to identify some additional parking. I would love to do the occupancy, but if we can't do the occupancy, then we'll do that. But those were my thoughts, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Michael, so serving on BOA, we're supposed to take the emotion out of it, and we're supposed to only talk about the property. What's going to happen with the property? We can't control who's in it, who's not in it. Are we thinking the same line here, or are we allowed a little more leeway? I mean, I'm trained by you for only the property.
Yeah, so you really should be staying in your lane, right? With regard to zoning entitlement that's being
I've been told that.
requested. However, we can make it conditional to ensure that you're mitigating some of the negative aspects that have been expressed. With regard to the P&Z conversation, what we had heard from the neighbors, there were several items that the neighbors expressed, and one of them was a code enforcement issue, right? So the trash, the trailer, so we can address that from a code standpoint. One of the other things that the neighbors expressed concern on was the property that's not this property, but another property in the neighborhood where there was a drug-related issue that had gone on for several years. The police worked on that case for a number of years, and they came to a resolution because those folks are no longer there. So that plays into the larger picture, right? And then the third item that the neighbors brought up is that they didn't want to see the new ADU built because it would increase property values and therefore increase their taxes.
Okay.
I'm saying what was said.
Okay. So this is really emotional because I like my neighbors to pay attention to me and what I want. I think communication here between you and your neighbors is going to be really important. If your tenant is moving out and you and your family are moving in and a relative is there, that's not turning into rental property. And I can tell your children are very well behaved. They're doing great tonight. But at the same time, I think like what you brought up is the house needs to fit the neighborhood. Maybe we need to look at it of bringing it down maybe a little bit more to fit more concisely in the neighborhood and make some adjustments that way. But there's a big emotional pull here. They've never met and they've only had to deal with, trouble, and that's hard. And so talk to them and, get this smoothed out, but let's put some changes in it that makes it more conducive. As far as property values going up, I don't want my next door neighbor to, the new neighborhood down the street, mine's a $275,000 house and we've got $800,000 houses down the road. My taxes are going up because of that. I have no control over that. I have no control over you all building up your houses and making them, absolutely fantastic. And you're going to compare mine to yours. We have no control over that part of it. So I think it's something we can work out with amendments, but you have to be good neighbors. We're a small town.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that they brought up is the trash, not just the trailer, but the actual physical trash. So if you're talking about a family in the main house and then a 2-bedroom in the other house, I also can you stipulate that they have to have their own trash can? Because I have a family of 5 and one trash can even twice a week barely works for the 5 of us because my children are pigs. So, that's just how it is. My neighbor next door, she has a large family. She has 2 trash cans, which I'm like, one day I wish I'm that rich that I get another trash can. But I think it's only fair that that's what I'm saying, you can't expect a 2-bedroom apartment and a house to share one trash can and not have an exorbitant amount of trash. And that's what's going on according to the neighbors now, is you've got the people in the rentals and you've got someone living in the shed, even if they're not supposed to be living in the shed, and we can't say they're living in the shed, but the neighbors are saying that someone's living in the shed. That's a lot of trash, and that's why a trash issue occurs. So the question is if you're gonna let them have a second house and it's not a mother-in-law, it's not a little old lady living in there that barely creates any trash, it does seem reasonable to require 2 trash cans for 2 basically separate houses. I think they're 2 houses, not one house and a little old lady. I think there's a big difference in that. 2 bedrooms is large. That's enough to put a whole family in it if you wanted.
So a special consideration for this property as it relates to trash, I can't speak to exactly how they calculate or how you get an extra trash can, is that this requires a unity of title. And so how that ends up impacting the access to a second trash can, I can't speak to, and so that's gonna be a utilities situation. But with the title unifying, it's no longer the two spots, so that may impact it based on what utilities.
So,
Utilities has.
I'd like to add to that. So this property, because it's a separate zoning lot, it does have a separate address.
That's what I was gonna miss.
So therefore, yeah, the separate addresses will remain. So theoretically, I believe that they could get a second, or have a trash or waste management service provided for that property. But I do want to touch on something. No. So I do want to touch on the code compliance. So one of the things, we had a long discussion with the residents who came and with the P&Z Commission, is that what we said is that, look, when there's a problem in a neighborhood with a neighbor, you need to let us know. Otherwise, we don't know. We can't address it. We didn't know. And when we do know, we'll go out there. I know that we've already talked to them about the trailer, but you have to let us know that there's an issue. Otherwise, we can't do it.
Mr. Goolsby.
I'm really being swayed. I really feel like the homeowner, not your brother, your wife, is really sincere about this house and the family aspect. I think that I can see the passion from them as far as this is where we want to be, and this is going to be our house. I'm really starting to see which direction I'm leaning. I love the idea of getting people in that are passionate about their house and to do the upgrades to it. We all wish that our neighbors would make sure their house was painted and their house was well maintained. And I just have the feeling from them that we're going to see that in this house. I'm doing this. Right now, I'm definitely leaning one way. So unless somebody convinces me back the other way, I know where I'm headed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This is going to require a second reading, right?
I beg your pardon?
This requires a second reading.
Yes, sir.
So is it possible for the staff to work on maybe some of the conditions that we've talked about and bring it back? And I don't know if it's possible to rope in some neighbors and maybe get their feedback, and maybe we can win some over with some of the plans.
So
I'm getting lots of facial expressions that are saying no, so I'm going to say.
So I think so far, the only really thing that I've heard that we can actually put in as a condition is the removal of the fence, which is a no-brainer because obviously they want to do that. The only other one that you would be adding in is the driveway. In terms of the trash can.
Parking space.
Parking space, an additional parking space flare somewhere along the way. I mean, we can work on that, or you can just say that, and we can work the language in and have it ready for the next reading.
And the other one was the expansion of the property to meet the square footage or a reduction in the square footage of the additional unit.
Yeah.
So like a contingent upon them expanding the house to meet this size or reducing the size.
Or at least having plans in place, permitted plans in place, something like that.
I don't know what that.
Well, if you did that, then we would do the first reading and sit, well, they actually got all of their plans ready.
Well, I meant for the addition. Do they have
On the main house.
On the main house, they have that?
So I don't know if they have construction plans. I know they've spoken to their architect who included a 600 square foot addition on the existing home. I don't know if that's viable as a contingency for a condition.
We're putting strings left and right. Contingencies left and right.
Because how would we regulate that? How would we enforce that? You have to build a 600 square foot addition by a certain date. I mean, that's the market, it's just so many variables. And
that's for you to figure out.
So I think the safer bet as to opposed to requiring a 600 square foot addition by a certain date is that you ask them to reduce it by 96 square feet.
then it doesn't
if they're
matter.
open to doing that. And it sounds like they are open to doing that. So those would be the conditions. We have the additional parking space, not a driveway, but a parking space. We have the removal of the interior fence. We have 2 additional garbage cans. No?
Each dwelling unit has a trash can.
Okay, so I know that sounds good to all of you. None of you set up the utility accounts. You don't know how it works. You have to have a separate meter. This is not going to have a separate meter.
Correct.
It's going to have 1 meter. What they can do is they can have their 2 trash cans. If in fact we find through code enforcement and neighbor complaints that they're overstuffing them, overfilling them, then we can go back and say, oh, no, can't do this. You have to get a second can. But you can't force them on 1 meter to have 3 trash cans.
And
What if they sell the property and the people that move in have to just have that same condition, and it's a husband and wife in the house and, you know, son, 25 years old, playing games in the back house? They don't need 3 trash cans.
okay.
I think you need to let codes handle the whole trash issue.
And that's reliant upon the neighbors calling codes.
Yeah, and we can, you know, we drive by. Waste management will tell us whose trash cans are overflowing.
I'm still sweating.
We have eyes.
Any other deals? Mayor Pro Tem.
I was gonna say, I'm a big believer in allowing property owners to make choices on their property, like that they own the property, and I want them to be able to do something that makes sense and works for them as a family. And I do see your passion about the house, and that does make me feel good. I do hope that you are leaving this meeting and probably left the P&Z meeting with the understanding that you probably have some bridges to build if this is approved. If you're going to live there, you're going to want to be a good neighbor, and it sounds like parking is an issue, and I'm happy to hear that you're willing to move the trailer to another location. I do think adding in the flare is a great idea. I think that will help go a long way. I just encourage you to really walk away, because we want people to want to be in UC. We want people to be passionate about their home, and we want them to love your home. And like Lori said, your kids seem lovely. I think you'll be great tenants when you move in there, but that could be, it sounds like it could be several years before you actually are able to move in. Is that correct on the timeline?
About a year or so.
A year or so, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I know how I feel like I struggled with this one. This is a hard one. But it comes down to homeowners making, the property owner being able to make choices with how they develop their property, as long as they're being a good neighbor. I would really ask that you work on being the best neighbor you can be.
Start fixing that bridge now.
As far as the trailer, if it's parked in the driveway, it's not an issue because it's not on the street, right? I mean, we're business owners. You know, that's another reason why we want to move into there. Like I said, we live in an HOA right now. We don't like it. If we park it in the driveway, there is an issue because it's not bothering anybody.
I think that would go a long way. Like I said, I also noticed that you had a truck park in back of the house. I'm not sure how legal all of that is, if you could move it back there. I don't know, but I would encourage you not to leave a trailer on the street as much as you have been. It sounds like that's a pain point for your neighbors.
Okay.
Anything can be in the driveway if it's not licensed as a commercial vehicle. What I mean a commercial vehicle, I mean by gross weight, not, oh, I have a plumbing company and I have a big plumbing van. Yeah, it's a commercial business, but it is not a commercial vehicle by gross weight.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? So we ready to vote? Call for the vote?
I'm sorry, sir.
Yes.
There were some
And
conditions.
those 3 conditions
Go ahead,
to the motion.
And the conditions need to be hyper-specific.
Oh, God.
Yes. Just somebody else.
We need a motion with hyper-specific language for the amendments.
As an example, you could say, move to approve, provided that the ADU is no more than 768 square feet, that the fence between the ADU and the main structure is removed, and that they provide for 1 additional off-street parking space. How hyper-specific is that?
what she said.
I'll second that.
No. I said it for you.
We've already got the
We
motion.
assumed somebody was writing it down.
I was, because I read it first. Somehow I jumped into this one.
So we already have the motion, we need a motion to amend.
Do I need to read the whole motion again?
No, so you can just motion to amend with X amendments, our hyper-specific amendments. Then we'll take a second, a vote, and then we'll go back to the original, and it'll be as amended by the vote. So that we wouldn't have to repeat it again. But we just need to make sure we have the hyper-specificity so that we can provide it to the property owner.
So I would make a motion that
You're gonna make a motion to amend
a motion to amend the motion
With amendments, yes.
with amendments.
with amendments that Ms. Turner just said.
Tim wrote them down.
I wrote them down. Did you not write them down?
No, somebody else is writing it
Why
down.
don't I take this one then?
But you can't, can you make a motion to amend your own motion?
I don't know, can
Why didn't she?
I can,
Well, okay,
I can
give
give
it
it
to
to
them.
Oh, I can't read your writing.
God, golly. All right, motion to amend the further motion, the previous motion with the following specific conditions. We'd like the accessory dwelling to be no more than 768 square feet. We would condition that the fence be removed between the home and the accessory structure. And we would also like to require that there is some sort of amendment, accommodation for another off-street parking with a flare of some sort. I second.
I don't know how it works, because I second it. Do I have to second her? or
We have to vote on
amend it?
this one first and then
You
go
already
back
said-
and
Yeah,
vote.
this is kind of like a floating independent motion that is attached to this motion, but it's by itself first.
So
So we take it.
which one are we voting for? We're going to call for the vote for which one?
The amendment
The
first.
amendment. Call for the vote for the amendment?
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
No.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
No.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, now we go for the original vote. Call for the vote.
Give me 1 second.
But do we have to
The
say?
vote as amended, the motion as
Motion as
amended.
amended.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
No.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
No.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Before I bring the gavel down, I hope your new neighbors are as gracious in accepting you as a neighbor as you have been gracious tonight in presenting yourself.
That was the gavel.
And we should make sure we get a copy of the specific.
You know, and item B, that was kind of.
You don't have to stick around. Some other stuff you need to
Resolution 968A2025, ordering the May 2025 Universal City General Election.
No. Put them back on.
I can't hear anyone.
Please approve.
And I said second.
Thank you.
Did you ever get a message from me?
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Carried. Item C, resolution 9772025, budget amendment 2025.
Hi.
Hi.
So, the budget amendment is to provide transparency over an overview for the capital improvements efforts related to water and stormwater projects. Staff respectfully requests that council approve resolution 977-2025 as presented. The resolution seeks to amend the fiscal year 2025 budget by creating two new funds to manage the revenues and expenses associated with the water and stormwater capital improvement projects. The only other thing I wanted to add is that one of the council members had asked that I explain the budget amendment. And the way that the budget amendment works is if it has a negative, what we are doing is we are reducing that budget line item. If it has a positive number, we are increasing that budget line item.
I'll call for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
And then discussion. Call for the vote on that matter. Let's stand back.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Again, this is that the line items on here are not subject to alteration, correct? For example, I don't think there was a definition as a capital improvement program for the essentially old, quote unquote, old maintenance facility. I've never been aware that has been approved capital improvements program with a designated budget projected.
Actually, yes, sir, it was. It was presented on July 9th by Grady, I don't know Grady's last name.
Reed, our rate consultant.
He did present it during the July 9th meeting.
So that was for the $300,000 budget.
Well, no, sir, it's 300, what they're trying to do is cash flow it. So it's $300,000 a year that they're adding to it.
I believe what he told you is that the capital improvements to the public works yard total approximately $6 million. So rather than go out for the initial bond of $6 million, they are trying to cash flow some of the earlier portions of that project, a water line, a detention pond, some fencing and things of that nature to lower that amount down. So when the utility fund is ready, and if it's ever ready, or council is ready, that we would issue the bonds to finish off the entire project.
And this cash flow comes from what?
So there's a portion in the utility budget, and there's a portion of it in the sewer budget.
So essentially it's rolled into the expenses of each resident. So without
It's funded by
Affect-
yeah,
The expenses of a resident, yes.
Okay, without going to the residents for a $6 million bond to expand public works, essentially.
In the future, that would be the definition. But we'll be providing a 5-year CIP plan for both of these funds that is more comprehensive and that is included in the budget document. Instead of having it separately presented, we'll include it in the budget document. But to delineate the two and to provide the citizens with more transparency on what we're actually spending the money on, we have to move this out of here. Because if you look at the financials for the fourth quarter for water and sewer, water looked like it had a lot more revenue than it actually did. But that's because it had expenditures that were budgeted, a line item that was budgeted for expenses that wasn't used, which meant that the revenues looked like they were greater than the expenses, if that makes any sense at all.
It does.
Okay. And that's basically why we're doing it. We need to become more transparent. We need to really delineate capital items from operating costs. And that's why we're requesting it. There's nothing changing within the budget as far as our numbers, just they're going to appear in a different fund.
Any other questions? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Putt?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal?
No.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a good session tonight. 9:19, adjourned.
Well, we did make 30-minute limit.
We think that.
You've been waiting to say that. You have been waiting to say that.